record here. There we go. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Balls in Your Face. I don't know about you, but sometimes I feel like I don't speak good. It's as if my mouth gets filled with the cotton balls. Well, fortunately, we are all in for a treat. I have none other than the magnificent, absolutely brilliant, and downright lovely Lila Smith. And she's going to teach us how to say things better. Lila, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to help people with the balls in their mouth. The cotton balls.
The cotton balls. Oh, I love it when that happens. So much fun. So nice to see you. And so I should tell people, so I met you originally through LinkedIn, was super impressed with everything that you do. And then got to see you live in action at the DYIB conference.
The DYPB, Discover Your Personal Brand.
DYPB, did I not say that right?
Yeah. You said, I think it's a DYI.
Discover your, DYPB.
Do it yourself brand.
There you go. See, I've already...
Discover Your Personal Brand, DYPB.
Yes, there you go. See, I've already said something completely wrong. So this is why...
But I took the balls out of your mouth.
You got the ball right out of my mouth, cotton ball right out of my mouth. So this is... So where I was just going to go with that was that, you know, I already knew you were brilliant. And then I saw you live and in person, and the speed with which your mind works, your ability to just engage with people, build immediate rapport and trust with people is just mind-boggling. Absolutely mind-boggling. So impressive.
Thank you. Thanks, Julian.
Well,
and back at you, because it was also my opportunity to meet you in person for the first time and hear your input in the workshop, the Verb Your Values workshop that I led, in Carrie Twig's part of the day. I mean, you were very present and active. Not everybody who attends conferences feels comfortable speaking up or inserting their own context, but when you did, there was such added value to the whole room. I love seeing that when people attend something and not only leave with more value, but have also left others with more value for having been around them in those workshops. So I think, like with anything, you get out of it what you put into it. And having you there, I could see you must do that all the time. You must always be putting so much of yourself out there.
Well, thank you so much for saying that. And I mean, again, I think part of that, again, was the fact that yourself, Carrie Twig as well, were just so sort of engaging and so sort of welcoming and helped people feel so comfortable that it just facilitated that. So I don't think that's necessarily possible when it's not facilitated by great workshop hosts like yourselves. But you're right that, I mean, I love to connect with people. You know, it's you know, I think it's I guess a high level of empathy, I suppose, or I don't know what it is exactly. But absolutely, I mean, I just love I like people. They're my species, right? So, you know,
yeah.
You know, so yeah. So tell us a bit about that workshop and what you do in general. Talk about Say Things Better.
So Say Things Better is a 5-step method that I developed based on my acting training and my personal values. So in acting, actors come to the stage with a script in hand, ready to rehearse and prepare a scene that other people will eventually see in an audience. And in that process, we have to bring so much of our own lives, our own context to the scene so that it looks real. So that what these fictional characters are saying in these words that somebody else has written sound like they're coming from us. So we have to show up as our fullest selves in order to make that even appear a little bit normal. So we have tools for this. We have methods, we have systems. I've been trained in all of them. So my multifaceted approach to acting, which is a little bit different than what other people do, which is usually commit to one thing and then just stick with that one section of training. But I've been trained in the Stanislavski system and the Lee Strasberg method and Stella Adler and Sandy Meisner technique. So all of these things have formed my context as an actress, and I performed professionally for 10 years in New York City and around the United States. So it's with that experience that I took these tools for creating a very active fiction by bringing truth to it, and now removing that fiction, removing the script, helping people to use those same tools to communicate effectively. So Say Things Better was born from that. It's 5 steps. It's actually a method in and of itself. And then the 5th step of that is where the Verb Your Values workshop was born. So that 5th step being communicative action. So based on Stella Adler's actions, for those of the people who are listening or watching are in the theater space, Stella Adler's actions are something you want to do to your scene partner with your communication. And so for me, it's not a scene partner, it's a communication partner. Whoever it is you're talking to right now, it's you, but it's also your listeners. There's something that I want to do to them with my communication. So maybe it's to include, to invite at this stage in the podcast. And later on, as you get me a little bit more warmed up, I mean, we've already talked about balls in the face, but you know, I'll get a little warmer as the night goes on. And so at that point, I'll probably move into to energize or to ignite even, or, you know, something like that. So those verbs being a purposeful extension of what your values are. What is important for you to make sure that other people feel when they're communicating with you? To me, in general, to connect, to affirm, to empower are my 3 main power verbs that I use in my communication with anybody at any time. That's me as, I guess, as a brand, as a business, as a person, but every company also has values. You see a mission statement, something that they say about why they started to begin with, what it is that's important to them, and how they treat their employees, what they want their customers to know. There could be hundreds of touch points within an organization where communication can get muddied if it's not purposeful. So these workshops that I run, the Verb Your Values workshops, are there to help business leaders, people in marketing, just really anybody who's going to be responsible for some elements of communication within a company, to have something very simple to go back to. Just a set of verbs that we determine together, and I show people how you activate that through different streams of communication. We had talked at the DYPB conference during the panel with Dr. Bryn Weingard, Bobby Umar, Carrie Twigg, and myself, hosted by Michael. Oh gosh, now I'm forgetting his last name, the worst. I'm sorry, but Michael, something with an H, something Canadian. Do you remember who he was?
I forget his name too, geez.
Right, oh my gosh. It's only because I said that. We would have remembered it like 10 minutes ago.
Yeah.
So Michael, moderating this panel. And we talked about, among other things, personal brand and how you show up. And we were talking about LinkedIn, which is where you and I met. And I had gotten this email from LinkedIn. Do you remember my mentioning that?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. So not to like blow up their spot, but I'm gonna. So LinkedIn had sent me, LinkedIn had shown me this ad on the side of my screen, a $50 ad credit for whatever I wanted to use it for. I thought, okay, I have an event coming up. This is a great opportunity, and I'll give it a shot. Everybody on LinkedIn, either knows who I am or they're going to with this ad. So I clicked on it, really excited to get started making my ad. I have visuals already in my head. I'm super engaged, and I am the most engaged LinkedIn evangelist anybody will ever meet, right? Like I tell people in the grocery store, you got to get on LinkedIn. I tell my Uber driver, you got to get on LinkedIn. I tell everybody. So this is me, just for some context. My whole life has changed because of LinkedIn. I now work for myself because of LinkedIn. I have this incredible community who keeps me literally alive, thanks to LinkedIn. And I am the person who clicks on this ad. I'm taken to a screen where I'm hoping LinkedIn's values are like the balls in my face, like I want to see LinkedIn's values that clearly because I'm already engaged at that level. But they kind of lost me through this process. And this is just a digital marketing experience, which is something that I know your listeners are often thinking about. So that's why I'm going to bring it up now, that every touch point, whether it's your display ad itself, your banner ads, your remarketing, your dynamic retargeting of people, and then also the landing pages. What's your language there, and is your language representative of your values? If it's LinkedIn, I'm assuming it's to connect, right? Let's just pick that one verb, to connect. And on the landing page, there were some really great options. I noticed sort of out of the corner of my mind that, or corner of my eye, that there were sponsored in-mails as an option. I thought, okay, well, that maybe some other time would be interesting. And then I clicked on the thing that said to go and get my $50 ad credit. So another thing pops up, and on this screen, there's like almost nothing. It says to put in my email address and my name. I'm like, you don't know who I am? Yeah. What? Yeah. So this was my first real point of disconnect, right? Was going to this screen where it should have automatically populated from data fields in LinkedIn. I ran an e-commerce department for 3 years at DNA Footwear in New York. So I'm still very fresh from like knowing what it's supposed to be. Mm-hmm. And I feel distanced. I feel already kind of ignored, that this should have already happened. This should have been easier for me. And then a screen pops up after I put the stuff in that says, okay, your ad credit will arrive in a day. I was like, within a day, I will already have gone on Facebook, spent my ad budget there, and probably gotten some kind of a return, or I could go and like spend a day doing other things. Like a day is already too long. But like, whatever, I let it go. I was like, fine, I guess I'll use my LinkedIn ad credit another time for another event. Right. But then I go to my email. And I'm already feeling disconnected, right? LinkedIn has not set out to connect with their marketing communication. And then I get an email, and the subject line is, thank you for your submission, ! Right. Thank you for your submission if I were rewriting it to connect, I would rewrite it as something like, we're excited to see what you do with your ad credit. Right. They know what product was that I was interested in. They have that information. Yeah. Where's the personalization? They also have my name now from 2 places. They have my LinkedIn profile and they have my submission. Right. And it could have been even like, Lila, we're excited to see you're finally using your ad credit that we've been advertising to you for 6 months. So it could have been something like that. They have that data, and they could have used that to personalize their message and to connect. Yeah. If that's their value in verb form, I didn't see it. Inside the body of this email, it's addressed at the top to sir/madam. I'm like, you talking to me? Because again, yeah. Hi, I'm Lila. Yeah. Remember me from LinkedIn, the person whose life you changed, the person who put their name into that box in your form submission, and the body of the email underneath, sir, madam, said, thank you for form submission.
Oh, we lost, oh, there we are, you're back.
Sorry, I just got a phone call I had to ignore. I'm back, sorry. So the body of that email said, thank you for your form submission. And I was like, no.
Right, yeah.
Come on, where are your values?
The generic.
Oh my gosh, where is to connect in that?
Yeah.
They know what the product was. They know my name. At least they know I'm a LinkedIn user. Use this opportunity maybe to bring back some of those other things I might have seen on that screen before. Let us know if you still want to know about maybe sponsored in-mail. Other options that I had seen back on that landing page. Remind me of that. Like, take this opportunity to engage with me more deeply, or say like, while we have you here, since you've opened this email, how's it going with your premium LinkedIn account? They have that data too. Did you know about these features in it? Did you know about Sales Navigator? Did you know? These are things that I would have wanted in that opportunity for them to connect with me on a more personal, deeper level, based on only data that they already have. And so that to me felt distancing. So when a company like LinkedIn isn't connected to just the simple verb of their values, this is the kind of resulting experience that can happen. And I'm the most engaged LinkedIn user that there is. I have to be.
Yeah.
I've spent so much time and heart on it. I mean, if I'm not, somebody else is going to have the same experience too.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, that's unbelievable, especially for an organization like LinkedIn, like you said, that's got so much data on us. Unbelievable. And you've touched on so many interesting things there. It's hard to even know where to kind of dive in here. I mean, one thing that I think is a great lesson out of all of this, in addition to the communication specific information that you're talking about, that I find really kind of interesting is what a great lesson this is for how, when somebody, here you are, somebody who has taken your previous interests, all of your training, niched it down so beautifully, so specifically, in such a unique value offer that's very clear, that's very distinct. I don't know anybody who's doing what you do, who comes from that sort of theater background and has now kind of converted that into a business communications training methodology. Like, nobody's done it. So I think just in terms of, just the lesson there of honing in again on what your value, and that's another sort of key thing, I think, of what you're talking about there, right? Like you identified what were your strengths. You identified, what did you know, better than a lot of people, and then incorporated that with your values and created something that's so specific to you. I think just in and of itself, that is such a great lesson and example for people who are looking to build their own business, branch out on their own, trying to figure out, what are they going to do because they just lost their job maybe. I think there's just so much value in just that. And then on the communication side of things, which of course is very much related to, what I do and what marketing is all about. I mean, it's at the heart of it. You're absolutely right. I mean, and it does. You're absolutely right that it's there's the how we communicate face to face, and that's a huge important component of connecting with people. Right. At the end of the day, all the stuff that we do on digital is very important too, obviously. Right. I mean, it's, and what you're speaking to about how exactly it has to happen on every single level of what you do. User interface, what you're talking about, the messaging, et cetera, it always has to be sort of on point and has to be thought through. I think you're absolutely right. At the end of the day, obviously, when we connect with people, digital is very impersonal. So it kind of gets you in the door. Anybody who connects through you at that point is cold. But one way to sort of warm people up is exactly what you're talking about, which is the personalization. That's just that is the new thing. We couldn't do that years ago. Everything was generic. I could understand when I got the direct mail thing in my at home.
Current resident.
Current resident, dear sir,
yeah.
madam. Okay, that was then. But we're living in the information age where data is there, and so
our expectations are different now.
Yeah.
We think that the internet knows us because it does.
Yeah.
So it has to be there. Our expectations of how we interact with the world and how important we are to that digital world.
That's right. Changed. That's right. And by the way, when you turn somebody off like that, it's not like, 20 years ago when if I was upset with something, with my experience with something, okay, I might have called up the customer care line. Well, now I can go on to Yelp and every single review site and tear your brand apart.
Yeah, I mean, you also have that immediate other option too. Like I said, I could just go right over to Facebook and spend my ad budget there, right? Mm-hmm. Like you have other options that are so immediate that they're in another tab, or you can even use the same one. I could bounce out of LinkedIn altogether and go to another site in 2 seconds before I even go and tell other people about my negative experience on somebody's podcast. And I still love LinkedIn, don't get me wrong. It is responsible for all of my business, all of my friends, and everything that's good in my life. But this was an experience that was dissonant to that. And so I did bounce, like, and you talk about people who are sort of cold, and you can warm those people up with personalization, with this digital footprint, and having your values expressed so clearly at every one of those touch points.
Yeah.
That you have to do that, because if you take somebody who's already so engaged and turn them off, what do you think they're going to, is going to happen with somebody who's not engaged at all yet?
Yeah.
They were cold then, they're colder now.
I think it's fair critique, and hopefully, somebody, I'll post this online, and hopefully somebody at LinkedIn is going to listen, because first of all, I mean,
they can hire me, if they want.
There you go. There you go, LinkedIn.
I'll go and I'll ask the email marketing team, like, did your email set out to connect?
Right.
Did it?
Yeah. Good. No, I mean, it's very fair critique, and I have similar feelings about LinkedIn. I'm very bullish on it. I think it is a great platform. It has evolved from the just sort of pure online resume that it used to be. So great for them. But what I would say is that it's not so much what LinkedIn has done. I mean, yes, they've introduced video. I think that's a big component of that. But it's the people that have made it what it is. It's not so much them. There's no question that they are playing catch up when it comes to the advertising game. They're playing catch up to Facebook. I mean, Facebook just has such a good head start on everybody in that realm. They've been at it for a lot longer. Their artificial intelligence is just way better, so they're using their data a little better. They also have, what the other thing that I've experienced with LinkedIn advertising that's sort of weak is that they'll consume your budget in a day, in no time.
Yeah.
Sort of,
you can't cap it.
Well, you can cap it, you can cut it off, and so on. But the thing is that, again, I think it's you've used up your budget very quickly, and then you're kind of, it's not as easy to assess the data and gauge with what your audience. I mean, that's the beautiful thing about Facebook advertising, is that you can micro test, you can do all the kinds of split testing. Test your communication, see, okay, well, what image with what language works best, test different versions out, see what people are responding to, get incredible metrics on that, and then adjust.
So you can ask yourself, like, with that verb, like, I'm so glad that you brought up an image too, because visual communication is all that we have for that split second, that first time that you have to communicate with someone before they read the words. They're looking, even in a text post that a user posts on LinkedIn, people are looking, is this a big block of text that's going to take me a while to get through? I'm going to scroll past, right? Like, even that is a visual, but using images, using video, those things communicate something. So if you have a value verb to say, does this connect? Is this image connective? And then doing exactly what you're saying, that micro testing to see, like, well, does it? Is it connecting? Is it actually connecting with my audience, or is something else connecting with them? And then you learn about them as a communication partner. What is it that connects with them? And then you can refine. So you set your goals to connect, and then you test to see what it is that's actually connecting, what it is that you're getting feedback from, that the metrics that they show you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what you're talking about when you talk about the visual side of things there, I mean, it's, I have a big background in digital video production, and so I'm aware of the research on this, and we are such a visual species. I mean, I think, again, this is the reason why video has been so powerful on LinkedIn, is because at the end of the day, communication is a very small percent, the language and the written word. We are so visual. There's so many cues that we give off, and visually, and certainly, when you're creating a video, when you pair the right image with just the right few words popping up and the right script, the retention level on those videos goes through the roof. Like, I mean, it's night and day if you do it properly. So
does everybody listening know what you mean when you say retention levels? Can you just explain, because there might be people who are listening to me who don't know this yet. Can you just talk about retention levels and visually and what that means?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So exactly, I mean, so you know, anytime that, you know, somebody gives a lesson, if you're listening, you know, you're listening to a professor or so on, well, you know, or whatever, you know, somebody's communicating something to you. What do you take away from it? Your retention level is what do you remember? If you know, if you can show, you know, there's a great video. I don't know if you've ever, have you ever seen that video test where they say, okay, now count, you know, they show this video of some people passing a ball around. Have you ever seen this? And so what they say is, okay, count how many times has the ball been passed around. And then, you know, midway through you say, okay, what was your number? Okay, it was actually 20. But by the way, did you see the gorilla that passed through? And so the thing is that, right?
Right.
And most people don't. And so that's the thing, is that there's so much data being thrown at us that the focus is what, you know, so you will not necessarily remember everything that you see and consume and have been told. And so retention level, when I talk about video, exactly is that, is, you know, if I'm to ask somebody after they've watched the video, okay, what were the 5 points, or what were, you know, what did you learn? What was the message of this? And you know, a low retention rate is somebody who just can't, is like, I don't know, there was a ball that was passed around, you know, versus, right, you know, like that was the thing, versus, you know, Lila talked about using verbs that are actionable, that are, right, that, et cetera, like being able to list it. It's how much did they retain from that communication. So like, that's what I mean when I say the retention levels goes up, is that you can ask somebody then, what did you get out of that video? And they're able to tell you a lot more. As I said, if words are being thrown up in your face, not obviously the whole script. It's like I said, it's a good balance of everything.
And why is it important for people to be able to retain your message? Like, so, because people don't always purchase on the first time that they see something, but they'll carry information that they retain. And sometimes they'll even bring it up in conversation with other people. So those people now have been exposed to something. It's like that game of telephone.
Right.
Do you know that? Did you ever play?
Of course. Yeah.
So you have this game where you whisper something to the person next to you. They say that same thing as they heard it to the person next to them, and so on until it comes all the way around. Almost always, when it comes to the person who's next to you on the other side, it comes out as a completely different message. So not only is it important for you to be so clear in your original communication, knowing that it will get diluted, but you might even want to like maximize that impact as much as you can. Drill it in by using those visuals. You know, I've seen videos that you've done, you know, spectacularly with this, that are probably better than anybody else's, at least that I know, where you have the visuals, you have the things coming in, and you got the things coming up, and you've got this framing that's repeated, that's memorable. You know, I know what the BIYF like colored backdrop thing looks like at the beginning of a video, so I know it when I see it. Oh, look, that person must have interviewed with Julian. That person must have, you know, done a video with them. That your branding is specific, that it's repeated, and that it frames things in a way that is memorable, and that I am directed to what I should be paying attention to. My focus watching your videos is directed to each point that I should know. And I think that's great about your work.
Thank you. Well, okay, yeah. I mean, it's been sort of an evolution in process. So, you know, things certainly, you know, when I look at what the first few videos in comparison to where it's come along, yeah, it's certainly, I think, gotten better. You also touched on something that's so important there too, like you said, is people talking. I mean, when from a marketing perspective, it's massive. I mean, a reference, the value of a reference of somebody else saying, here's a company that does this, you know, and so this, for example, sometimes I'll say, you know, for example, on Facebook, you know, when we're talking about advertising, people's instinct is to always go for, you know, okay, well, who are the top decision makers necessarily, and everybody wants, you know, or who are those, so the high income earners and so on. That becomes a very expensive audience. But, you know, don't think for a second, you know, that, you know, if somebody sort of lower down the ranks watches something, says that, you know, and then they end up speaking to their boss and they say, oh, you know, well, you know what, I saw this company that does X. Well, because of the fact that it was referred by somebody else gives it so much more weight. Like, again,
those people are also like, it makes them look really good to have the genius solution. So if you can make it very clear to them why this is a genius solution, then you have internal ambassadors, people that you have evangelized with the information. A lot of people, so I talk to sales teams sometimes about, when they connect with somebody, making sure that that person is not left out, even if you have to go a rank above them. If they have to, oh, I got to check with my boss. Okay, let's do that together. You've been so open on this call and you have asked such great questions. You clearly are an asset to this company. I don't want to lose you as, an ally in this. And I would like to talk to your boss too, with you there, about the quality of the questions that you've asked me, that clearly you are a hero here and I want to give you some credit too. So you then create a partner. And then when you go and you talk to this boss for the first time, it's not one-on-one, it's two-on-one, because you now have a powerful ally and they're inside the company. So just, as a tip for people in sales, like when that comes up, it is about having that extra person and telling them why you will make them look like the hero. You have to use what's in your toolbox to help them achieve their objective in order for them to even pass your message along. Because I took a lot of messages back in my day that I crumpled up and threw away. And to be honest, so did, a team member of mine who used to screen my calls, used to say, do you want this? And I'd be like, and he'd throw it away. So,
right. Yeah. No, I mean, it's something that I often encourage people to do, and I do, and it's a mistake that so many people make. It's like when I come into a business, for example, I will spend time. One of the most valuable people, one of the best people to speak to in an organization isn't the top person. It's the reception right at the front. Yep. Right at the front desk. They know everything that's going on. Right? They connect to just about everybody in that organization. So, do not just cherry pick those top people, those top senior level people. For all of these reasons, that we're talking about, it's such a key sort of message. It's funny that we diverted into that, but it's
great. No, I mean, they filter those options too, right? Like they take the 25 calls that have come in, and they will say, okay, here are the ones that are important. Here are the 2 that need your attention today, and that's it.
Yeah.
And so, what's the digital equivalent of that? Like when you were talking about the markets on Facebook, the people who are maybe the lower demographic or like slightly outside of the age range, or in a less affluent city, what is that digital equivalent? And how do you reach those people in a way that empowers them to talk to those decision makers?
Right. So one exactly is to not exactly like I said. So it's about the targeting, and there's so many ways that you can be kind of clever about your targeting that helps you to reduce your costs. So part of it exactly is to think, okay, well, who else is involved in this decision process? Who else might have a more keen interest? Who might be aligned with what it is that I do that could advocate for what I do? Because for example, in any kind of business, when it comes to digital marketing, advertising, somebody who's at the top, or let's say somebody who, especially in today's day and age, where some of those senior level people might not be technologically savvy, right? They, in a lot of cases, somebody at that top, if it's a large organization, they're not the ones checking their own emails or on Facebook or LinkedIn or Twitter or any of these social media. So they are operating purely on the advice of other people within their organization. So then the question becomes, well, okay, who can I go into those interests? Or who are the people that are keen on that? Or, do they have, let's say, somebody within the marketing department or a design department or, within that communications department? You can also even get even sort of more surreptitious and say, okay, well, the people who are into, who might advocate for me because, also might listen to this podcast, read this book, like this author, drink this beer, whatever it is, right? Like understanding, who are going to be your champions of your brand and why. And then you can go after them, and then it's such a less expensive targeting, because everybody's just, by default, everybody just thinks, okay, I want the decision maker, I want the CEO, I want, the high income earners. and everybody's going for that. So guess what? It's more expensive.
Right. So, do you know Lux and Nick's bags?
Yes.
Lisa Hu is the creator of these bags, and I met with her at the Network Bar in Dallas last week on Friday. Also with Madison Wallace, Katie Wallace, Javi and Nami, who are like a little YouTube team that I met in person for the first time. So we all met with her and we looked at her bags, which, by the way, are gorgeous. And I've been talking about them everywhere, not because like I'm not getting paid to, but because I am the market for this bag that has not yet been created until she created it. I'm traveling constantly. Every week I'm somewhere else. I'm in upwards of 3 cities a month. Usually it's more. Sometimes it can be a lot more. I'm traveling, but I need to be professional and presenting and speaking to professional groups of people. And I also want to look good. I'm a woman who values that, and I feel it says something about me and my visual communication of what I am and what level I'm at. So having Lux bags, Lux and Nick's Lux, Luxe bags, are something that would make me feel really put together and also empowered because it can fit all my stuff. Like, you have no idea how much stuff I take with me. But I'm thinking about how could I have heard about this bag without having to meet the CEO and creator of this company? Like, who would I have listened to? What would that journey have been like for me? And I'm thinking, like, who do I even talk to? I mean, I guess I talked to Katie. She's one of my best friends. So if she had heard about it from her, I could have heard about it from her. Probably would have seen it in her Instagram feed, and she did post a picture of it. And I've been like, where would you get that amazing large backpack that looks gorgeous? And are you taking shoes out of a special pocket in there? Is there a shoe pocket in your bag? Like that could have happened. So to me, Katie is a micro influencer. She's not somebody who has 100,000 followers on Instagram, but she is someone whose opinion I trust, and I'm someone whose opinion other people trust. So thinking about this, like this micro influencer level within social media and getting in front of those people, because when it's a good product, and it just has to get in front of me. I just have to see it. I talk to people all the time about how I don't have a lot of time to shop. So what's in front of me is often what I buy. I'll buy the best of whatever I see, right. As far as I can make decisions for myself. So having it on Katie in front of me would help me make that decision. And right. And I'm not looking to, I don't work with a personal stylist yet. I mean, I'll take one, but those are people who are the major influencers on Instagram or on Facebook. People are often targeting that person, the stylist who works with the busy people who have a lot of money. Like, I don't have the money for a stylist, but I have the money for a bag.
Right. And what you're saying is so, I mean, on their behalf, exactly what, so you've told me a whole bunch of information. I imagine that some of that's consistent. If I was the owner of Lux, I would start to maybe, okay, let's look at a few of the people of our clients, see if what Lila's saying is consistent. Are there a decent number of them who travel a lot, who are
no, she knows.
Right.
Lux and Nick's bags are Lux and Nick's bags are for sure, I'm exactly their target demographic. The professional woman who travels a lot and wants to look good.
Right.
For sure. Yeah.
Right. So
she's done a lot of that market testing too. I think she's really smart. And you should talk to her.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. But I think she's really smart about the way that she is testing the market and asking those smart questions. What are some of and I know I'm interviewing you here instead of talking about myself, but I'm so excited to talk to you and hear, have some of my audience learn from you too in this. So, I always talk about the quality of your questions. When you're trying to understand a client, when you're trying to understand your communication partner, what are you listening for? Are you really trying to understand what their objective is so that you know how best you can be a yes for them? So, the kind of quality of questions that you take the time to really think about your communication partner when you ask these questions. So what are some of the questions that you ask someone to determine what their needs are and whether or not you would be the best fit for them for their digital marketing and video marketing needs?
Great. That's a great question. And it's some of it's, like I said, some of it's a little hard to answer in the sense that, what I said off the top, that I've always just been a very sort of empathetic person. Like I know that, you know, for example, I don't enjoy large crowds as much as I do the one-on-one. And part of that is, I think, because like I am always in a large crowd, well, in any situation, I am picking up on so many like subtle little forms of communication. And in a crowd, it's for me, for someone like myself, it's almost overwhelming, right? Like I can be sitting there talking to somebody, and in the corner of my eye, some body language will say, oh, that person's not happy, and oh, you know, whatever, like that person's getting a little aggressive, and you know, whatever it is. And so all of this data is like a little too much. So some of it is like, some of it is very much intuition, but here's one way that maybe I can answer the question a bit, is that I certainly operate on the assumption that, you know, there is a sort of a default standard answer to questions that people will really give about something. You know, let's say you're trying to sell something, right? And it's like, okay, well, what are your objectives for your business? What is it that you're trying to do? And, you know, people will say, well, I want to make more money. You know, I want to grow my business. Well, everyone sort of says that. What I assume is that there is something much more personal for them, and so when I'm looking for the questions that I'm asking, it's often trying to sort of dig deep into them as an individual, what it is that are their personal objectives and personal pain points. Because, you know, really, like I said, like rarely when you in a sale, I don't think it really, rarely does it have anything to do with the money, right? Like like people have when people have a pain point, you know, let's use like going to the doctor or something like that, right? It's like, you know, your shoulder is like absolutely killing you, right? You know, if what, you know, you want that pain to go away. And if, you know, if the doctor says, okay, well, you know, this is what it's going to cost, you know, you're going to find the money somehow, right?
If it hurts that bad, yeah.
If it hurts that bad, you will somehow find that need. So what
the benefit on the other side, right, is so great, like freedom from the pain. And I always say that benefits are stronger than pain. Like, yes. If you say that like freedom from the pain is so much stronger than like the pain will, you know, stop, that like there's a positive statement that you can make in anything. And if you pursue that positive statement, yeah, you're taking somebody into a place where they know you make them feel good.
Well, you're saying exactly sort of where I was going with that, which is that the real thing that people want at the end of the day isn't, like I said, isn't like growing their business, more money. What it is they want, let's say, more time to spend with their family, or they want to be able to travel the world a little more, or, you know, half of their family lives, you know, on some other side of the world, and they'd like to be able to go and visit them, whatever it is. But that's exactly like you're saying, that there's some real more personal living need or desire that they have. And when you can touch on that, then exactly what you were saying is that then you can rephrase it into a positive statement. You know, so instead of me then saying, you know, hey, you know, through this marketing now, I'm going to grow your business by, you know, you're going to be making $10,000 more a month, or, you know, whatever. It's, we're going to get, you know, so if we do X, Y, and Z, here's the plan that I put forward for you. And that is going to get you to spend more time with your family, right? And it gets you what their real internal need or desire is, you know. So what I would say is this, is, you know, if I do a call, when I do a phone call with somebody, I never ever try to sell them off the bat. I just want to know, I just want to really, like I said, I want to get to know that information. I want to understand who they are, what their personal dreams and aspirations are. My magic question, I would say, if there was one for the first call that I have with someone, is tell me more, tell me more, tell me more. Because if you just keep on asking that, they will start to open up. And then that sets me up for a call the second time that I speak with them, where I can get to say, you said this, right. You said that.
And what keeps people on the call? Like, why do you think, I mean, I know I talk to you, right? Because I like you a lot. If you told me, tell me more, I would, because I already know you. But if somebody calls me and I don't know them and they say, tell me more, I'm like, Why should I tell you? So what is it that you've done first to warm them up? I bet there's something. I bet there's something that you're doing. You're charming, like you set out to charm, to disarm, to connect, whatever it is. You've done something, and I know it, that comes before the question, tell me more. Like, what's the first question?
That's a great question, because like I said, in part, I'm not even conscious of it. But
right, because you just are awesome.
It's more. You're so sweet.
But if you're not Julian and you want to learn from this, like, how do you get that that rapport that Julian builds with people when they're on the phone, so that when he says, tell me more, they're not like, no, I don't have time for this, bye. You know, what is it that you're doing? I think
what it's not so much it's not even necessarily so much of a technique as a philosophy of you cannot be I'm not interested in transactional sales. I'm not, right? Like I don't know about you, but for sure, if somebody hits me up and then starts selling to me right away, it's a turnoff. I know when, people have very sort of high sort of BS detectors. They know
right.
They know, and again, it goes back to the fact that we are all on some level almost more empathetic than I think we even realize. We are all picking up on all kinds of subtle cues. And so what I think a big part of it is more sort of, like I said, a philosophical approach that I just assume that if I, rather than, sell, that if I make it if my objective is to help people, to connect with people in a meaningful way, that good things will come. I don't think about the sales, to be honest. Like it's not like that's a thing. It's like if I have a call with somebody and and at the end of it, they've been like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. That's been really helpful to me. Mm-hmm. I'm happy.
So would you say that you verb your values before you get on the call, that you're like, I'm going to connect? And even if you're not conscious about it, I think that it is your philosophy, it is who you are. But sometimes people forget, especially if they are in a high stress situation like sales, when they're commission motivated. And I have a lot of empathy for salespeople. So actually I have a very different approach. I know a lot of people get turned off when they're sold to right away, and they will like decline a LinkedIn invitation, or they'll say something nasty back, like, buy me dinner first, would you? Before you put your balls in my face. But you named this.
It's got Z on the end of balls and it stands for bold and living life zealously. I don't know what people are so upset about.
Sure. Bold and living life zealously.
In your face. Yeah.
In your face.
In your face.
Balls in your face, all right?
Balls, oh yeah, with the Jersey accent.
Here's where the Brooklyn will come out. Yeah. When you say but this is like, yeah, go ahead.
I do I think I do definitely, especially when I get on the call and I get the sense that somebody is cynical or reluctant, feels like they're going to be sold. Then absolutely, mm-hmm. Right off the bat, I say, this is not a sales call. I am not here to find out and I guess part of it is because I do feel very comfortable in the fact that I am in a position to work with the types of clients that I want to work with. I think I've just learned very early on that, if I get a bad feeling from you, I'm not interested in your business, because that just invariably just doesn't work out well. And as far as I'm concerned, I want to operate my business from any client is in fact a partner in my mind, right? Like
to partner is a good verb for you.
To partner, yeah. There you go. Well, yeah, and I say that very frequently. I am looking for businesses that we can partner with, because your growth is my growth as well. Right? I mean, if you do advertising or SEO with me and that works great for you, then you're going to want to spend more on that. And from that, I'm going to grow as well. So it has to be sort of mutually beneficial. So I am very clear about the fact that I do not, I'm interviewing you just as much as you are interviewing me for my service. I want to know that.
So what gets you to call someone to begin with? Like why, you know, if it's not a sales call and it's really an interview call, do you already know that they have some kind of interest? Is it all inbound filtered leads? Or are you ever calling somebody not knowing that they already know who you are and that they're interested in you, that you should be interviewing them? You know, like, let's say I walk up to somebody at a party and I think like, oh, this guy looks nice. And then he starts like giving me the third degree about like, how many children would you like to have? I'm like, listen, you know, like maybe you're interviewing future partners, but I'm not necessarily open to being interviewed. So there's a step even before that, like there has to be some awareness there too, of when you are talking to them, with the awareness that you're not trying to be in a sales call. And I think it's very important that you're aware of that value for yourself, because you're comfortable enough then building rapport, because you know you're not trying to give them something that they don't want, because you know you're not trying to push something just so you can make a dollar, right? So taking that urgency out of the situation means that you're able to really communicate as yourself. You are fortunate enough, Julian, that you as a person, you yourself are somebody that just by showing up, people want to talk to you. Other people have to be more tactical and strategic in connection, because they're not as empathetic, they don't listen as carefully. And when they go into like see if someone's a good match for them, there are still things that they can actually do. There are specific questions that they can ask. They can be listening for certain kinds of things, and starting by acknowledging like, hey, here's what I understand of you know, your business. And like, just so you know, I've already come with some research. You know, I'm not going to ask you all the questions that I should have already researched, because I have that done already. So immediately showing that you've put effort in will build trust. Not everybody is likable, but effort is likable. You know, that is something that will make me listen more. So doing your research ahead of time, and then also acknowledging something specific, like here's an issue that frequently comes up in your business. Would you be open to hearing an example of how I solved that issue and ended up making another client a lot of money? You know, or here's an example of, I talked to somebody yesterday, whether it's yesterday or the week before, you know, whatever. I talked to somebody who said that this kind of thing came up for them. Does that come up for you too? So you're creating a connection, even if it's not with you, with that other person. And you're also demonstrating that you understand what their needs are, and that you care enough to ask. So there are like lots of tactics that you can do when I do work with people about helping your communication partner achieve their objective, which is the third step in the 5-step method. That's one of the things that I work with them on, is like getting to those questions that you need to actually be aware of what's at your disposal. What kind of questions can I ask people to help me help them better? And I know that you do this, and you just naturally, people just want to talk to you because you are coming from a place of, I care, I want to help you, and I want to make sure this is a good fit before either of us jumps in.
Well, that's the thing, and that's the sort of, that's why it's a little hard to sort of break down into a prescriptive, you know, this is how you do it, because, you know, for example, for this show, I know roughly sort of what my guest is about, what their main sort of core message is, but I do not, it's not like I sit there with a list of interview questions. And the reason why, right, the reason why I don't do it that way is because I think that's boring for the audience. What I think is, I think it's a much more interesting and engaging show if the conversation has a life of its own. Then it's
like journey. This one, yeah.
Like this one, right? Like exactly. Like I didn't know, we didn't know, you know, we've gone into
anything that we were going to be talking about, yeah.
Yeah, and so, but that's the thing, is that then a good conversation is like a journey, and that then for the audience, my assumption is that is they get to come along for the ride, and it's a lot more fun. Mm-hmm. So, you know, to answer your question from the top, there is that I don't. Most of the connections are inbound. Occasionally I will reach out to somebody, but again, it's because, as you're sort of saying, it's because it's like, okay, I saw that you posted and talked about this, and so I know that there's something there, there's a reason, or there's a person in between that is a connection, or there's some reason for me to reach out. And this was for sure, like, you know, when I started my agency, at first, you know, I had my natural sort of social network, and so, okay, said to everybody, okay, hey, I'm out on my own right now. If you know anybody that might be interested in these services, in what I do, I'd love to speak to them. But I knew that was finite. And I did not like the idea personally of cold calling. That's where I don't like it. It's not push. I don't like to be pushy. I don't like to, I cannot stand sort of snake oil salesmen who will say, like in marketers would be like, hey, just do these 5 simple steps and then you're going to make $1 million. Like it's, like bull, because if that were true, then every single business would just use that system and make millions and millions of dollars. Like, give me a break. Everybody is unique. That's my assumption. Every business has its own way of that it's, every business is unique. It has its own character. And therefore it has its own unique way that should be marketed, communicated. So yeah, it is. It's tough because it's quid pro quo. I would say that the number one thing is listening, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's one of the things that I took away from my acting training that was the most valuable for me, especially in Sanford Meisner's, people call him Sandy Meisner's technique. There's a very deep focus on active, present, moment-to-moment listening. I did a whole video about that back in my hashtag 10 tips, 10 days, hashtag say things better series about just deep listening and really being present. And you do it naturally. I mean, I've seen you do it, and we talked about it in this podcast, but you do it naturally where you just are looking at all the little symbols and signs and things that are going on. You're listening for which word did somebody choose? And what does their voice sound like right now? And do I hear a lot of keyboard clacking, and all of the stuff that you're taking in naturally? People can be purposeful about listening to if they're thinking about it.
Absolutely.
People can be more Julian.
Well, yeah. I mean, so, and you see, again, like I did study psychology. That was what my degree was in. Now, I don't know that I necessarily learned so much as I went into psychology because I enjoyed this stuff. But for sure, for example, one thing in psychology that is often spoken about for effective communication is active listening. Right. So I think it's what people will say. And again, maybe I do this naturally. I don't tend to think about it too much, but it's true that I will, you mirror what the other person has said. I heard, here's what, I heard you say. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, what else? Is there anything else that I'm missing in that? And then that is one sort of just key to effective communication. It's so easy for people to just kind of talk past each other. And then what you mentioned some good points too, tonality. Right? Like exactly. Like you get a sense of when, somebody's, their eyes are shifting away. Their voice starts to become a little more flat, versus more excited. Right. And if, that's what excites that person. Okay. Let's focus in on that. Can people train themselves to do it? Absolutely. I think you can.
Yeah.
And it requires,
even just like being aware of it to start, like,
awareness.
Just ask yourself, am I listening?
Yeah. Did I hear? And I think that's a good way for the mirroring. Active listening is a great way to validate whether you are being a good listener, right? Because if you hear something,
I get that right?
I get that right? And the person's like, no, not at all.
Right. Okay, okay, sorry.
Yeah,
I have to practice that all the time. I'm not perfect. I'm a communication specialist, but I still am not perfect. But I want to know that. I want that feedback because I really care that the people that I'm talking to, that my communication partners feel heard and understood and seen. Yeah.
So I think it goes back to what I was saying earlier about just like not being so transactionally minded. When you start treating everybody as a transaction, it's cold. It's just, you're not connecting. I think you start with the connection. And like I said, just have faith that, maybe, like I said, if I help somebody, maybe they won't be a client, but they might also, but that doesn't mean, going back to what we were saying even earlier on the show, that they might say, oh, well, I spoke to Julian and he really knows what he was talking about. And
Yeah, I
again,
just did that the other day. Somebody asked me about, did someone reach out to you recently? There was somebody who asked me if I would do some kind of something, I think it was like a paid marketing spend or SEO, or it was something that they asked me to do that, like, yeah, I can do that, but I'm not doing that right now. And I was like, actually, you should just go talk to Julian Smit, you know?
no,
So because that's where like also like competition isn't even really a thing, right? Like, sure, I can do that stuff. Been doing it a long time. Do I want to do that now? No. So who else am I going to refer? And being that person for people that you can refer them business is also a way that people get value from your relationship. So
that's
even
right.
if it's not like a sale, if you can create an ambassador, if you can evangelize somebody to be like, listen, I know the guy, it's Julian.
Right.
You know, it's balls in your face marketing.
Yeah.
That those are the people to go to.
Yeah, no, I've had a good number of people come in that way recently. Like somebody exactly that. Like somebody was like, you know, I saw there was the post on Facebook. Somebody said, you know, hey, I want to do some YouTube ranking. Do you know anybody? Somebody that I knew said Julian's the guy to talk to. And again, like it's just, I mean, that's gold. Or you know, the great one
Oh,
was
that we were talking about Vimeo, right? Like,
yep.
yeah, as something that ranks. So I think that's what it was that I referred you to somebody when they were like something about video and rankings. I was like, just talk to Julian.
Right. Yeah.
I'm
Well, I
telling
mean,
people how to talk about like their heart and soul, you know, and why their business is uniquely positioned to succeed, and why investors should invest in their startup, and whatever it is that gets someone their yes, I'll do that. So like, just because I can do these other things doesn't mean that I'm going to.
and
I'm the
that's
person doing these things. You're the person doing those things.
and that's worth its weight in gold. Like
Yeah.
like again, like I don't think I've ever tried to sell you something,
No,
right?
but I mean, you know, I mean, I would love to see you try. Like, I would love to understand what that process is like for you. I have like, not like a challenge, but I would love to hear what that process is like for you. I have like 3% battery left at a power outage in
Okay.
Dallas. So I'm hot and my phone's gonna die. So I want to make sure that like, you don't think I've hung up on you.
Oh no, I know, I
Yeah.
understand, and thank you so much for accommodating me in this way. The fact that you're
Yeah.
down and that you're willing to just get on your phone and make it
What could
work.
be more worth my battery percentages than you?
Oh my God, you are so good to me. See, I mean, it's gold, but there it is. Like it's gold. And you know, am I willing to? Yeah, I mean, absolutely. We can talk about what I do. I don't try to use this show again. Same thing. Like, my agency is actually called JD Nevins Communications. I think that's the first time I've ever said the name of my agency on this show, because it's not my goal. Like my goal is to just help people through the show, get great people like yourself who have so much to offer, so much to learn. I right off the bat, just speaking to you, I get something. Right?
Aww,
I
that's the
learned.
nicest thing.
Oh, but I learned so much, and then on top of that, hopefully my audience learns something. And I'm a happy man. You know what I mean? Like it's worth its weight in gold. And the fact that you said, you know, oh well, you know, you and I spoke once about YouTube ranking. Like, yeah, sure, I could say, you know, okay, yeah, we're very good at video production, we're very good at video ranking, we're very good at Facebook advertising, and SEO in general. You know, there's probably a few other things, but you know, it's not.
Well, there's a list of like the things that you can do, right? So there's like a very long list of things that you can do. But I remember that because you and I had an engaging moment. So we had a conversation around this that was personable, that related, that connected. We were talking about, you know, some specific videos that had gone up on YouTube and had gone up on Vimeo, and like what had happened, you know, that we had a conversation about this that told me, if you're able to have a conversation with me at this level on this, you know what you're doing. And I remember that.
And the funny thing is
I don't even remember what the videos were, right? Like, it's not the details. It's the fact that I took away, you know what you're doing.
And here's what's so great about this, right? That it's a two-way street, right? Because I got a lot out of that too. Like, what you kind of extracted out of me was the fact that as an agency, you know, for agencies, retainer contracts are gold. Every agency loves retainer contract. But what you extracted out of me is the fact that I'm actually, you know, what is probably the most unique value proposition is that I want to give you value. And so what I've realized, and what you kind of helped sort of extract out of me, was the fact that I'm very willing to teach you how to do this stuff on your own.
Damn you, internet!
And
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, you're just amazeballs, Lila. I love you to death.
You're amazeballs in your face.
Oh gosh, the things that come up. But I find it amazing.
I think it's funny because people think that I'm like, you know, like a delicate lily or sunflower, because most of the videos that I've done are filmed at like 5:30 in the morning in the dark when I barely have spoken yet. And then I'm like, hi, I'm Lila Smith, creator of Say Things Better. You know? And I'm like, give me a cup of coffee, and like as the day goes on, but that's when I have time usually to film videos. So people get all the different versions of me if they like watch my videos that I'm filming myself to post in the early morning. And then when I get different parts of my personality come out with different people. So if I'm interviewed, if I'm on a podcast or a different podcast, people will see all different facets of myself. So I don't think I've ever been like the Brooklyn girl who said balls in your face, on
never.
anybody else's podcast.
I haven't seen you do that at all. So
That is special between me and you.
Oh, I get to extract the 50 shades of Lila. That's great.
Extract the balls from my face.
You have milked the name of this show more than anybody.
I love it so much, but I love words, and I love like what it does to someone. You know, it really it will like agitate a lot of people, and it will shake them. But mostly it's going to amuse people, like the right people, the people who are your audience, the people who are going to be casual in their communication with you and not take themselves so seriously, even as they take their business seriously.
That's right.
That they want still like that kind of communication. It's going to resonate with those people, and I'm one of those people. I like humor. I like people who don't take themselves so seriously, even while they're getting serious business done.
Yeah, exactly. No, I mean, exactly. I have no interest in people who are overly serious. I agree with exactly what you're saying. You can get serious things done and still, do it with a bit of joy, a little bit of pleasure, a little fun. Yeah, I mean, I've said this a lot, that the whole show stemmed from, it was a joke. It was like an inside joke. I had no intention of doing it. It just kind of was this inside joke, and then somebody was thinking that just a few sort of insiders would get a good kick out of a video that I threw together in like an hour and a half or something, and a whole bunch of people were like, "That's hilarious, that's awesome," whatever. And that's just my tongue-in-cheek sense of humor. And then I debated a lot about, well, do I want to put out there? It's not so politically correct. And then what I realized in a way was exactly, I think, what you're getting at, which is that, well, it's a filter for the people who just are going to look at that title and get turned off. Well, okay, that's great. Like, you're not my audience, as you're saying, right? Like, if you are so easily triggered by a title, and this is sort of, Kurt Mercadante made that point when he was on the show about that.
Right.
That the problem isn't fake news. It's that people will, just read a title, not read anything to do with what the article's about, not realizing that the article is saying almost the opposite of what the title is, or, it has nothing to do with it. And they were just too easily baited.
It's on LinkedIn too. So my friend Chris Williams, who's in the UK, he's a LinkedIn trainer, and he helps people, generate inbound leads for their business. And I actually, he was one of the first people who helped me to know what about crafting a post on LinkedIn is going to resonate and match it through the algorithm. And he's just so smart. He puts out a lot of free content all the time. When he works with people, it's really more specific to what they do. But he, just as an experiment, changed his job on LinkedIn like the same day that I had. And I put this, mentorship experience with Tech Wildcatters up on my LinkedIn profile, because it really is work that means a lot to me. And I'm doing a lot of work with them, traveling with them and helping their interns and startups and CEO. And so I'm doing a lot of things with them. And I added it to my LinkedIn profile, not knowing that I had a setting on that was going to alert everybody, Lila has a new job.
Yeah.
And then I got like 3,000 messages that I'm still going through.
Congratulations.
But on that, thank you very much. My new job. But I've been doing this since early July. And so Chris on the same day posted a job update of his own as an experiment. and he wrote something like chief communication, like Ponzu Ninja or something. I don't even remember what it was. I don't know, something like crazy.
Yeah.
And just to see, and in the description of the job, he wrote, "This is an experiment to see how many people actually read about what it is I'm doing now before they congratulate me."
Right.
And
Nobody.
tons of people comment, right? Like nobody,
Yeah.
nobody. I
Well,
was like, wait, Chris has a new thing. Let me go look at it, because I feel like I would have heard about that by now from him. We talk, right? So I looked at it and then I was like, oh, okay, Chris, you're funny, you know?
Yeah. Well, no, I know Roger Wilkerson just had this exact experience yesterday. He put him, right, he's created Bobby the Bear, right?
Yeah.
And so as a joke, he gave himself the new title of personal assistant to Bobby the Bear.
And he is.
Which you would,
He is the personal assistant.
Exactly. He's the person behind Bobby the Bear. And he's like, yesterday when I spoke to him, I don't know what it's at now, but yesterday he said, I've got 500 congratulations today just for this new job title that I've given myself, that's of my own creation. It's absolutely, I mean, it goes to show exactly how, I mean, this is something that how sort of superficial and how kind of short people's attention spans can be. And it's something that I kind of want to, it's another kind of thing that I wanted to kind of combat with the show is have engaged long form content. Yes, I will trim it down and I'll create a little, but even that, sometimes it's longer than what people suggest you should do. And people are like, you know, your video should be like 1.5 minutes. And I'm like
if your video has 1.5 minutes of solid, valuable content in it and nothing beyond that, then it should be 1.5 minutes.
Right.
So like if your video in 8 minutes is going to transform someone's business, make an 8-minute video. But you are going to see that, especially on LinkedIn, where people aren't there to consume video content, even though there is a lot of it there, and it is an effective way of delivering some information to some people. It's not like YouTube, where people are going there knowing they're going to go for a video. Right. So when people are there on LinkedIn, if you have an 8-minute video and you break it up into segments, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever it is, you have more of a chance of reaching people to help them, because it's less of an immediate opt-in. Even if you have 8 minutes of value, people won't even open the video sometimes, because they'll think, this is going to take 8 minutes of my time, and you haven't proven yet to me what that's going to be. So that's where like timestamps within the text are going to be helpful for people to say like, oh, I can go right to this, or they can say, I really need to set aside 8 minutes for this, because this is something that is going to really make a difference for me. So having that text post accompanying your video on LinkedIn really helps. It's helped me to have people like know what it is. And I just can't be limited to a couple of seconds, unless it's some kind of big collaboration.
Yeah, no, I mean, certainly if it gets to a point where I've got, more people behind me doing it, then I will be much more strategic about it in that way. And I certainly do have, I've got, a couple of videos that are just, a couple minutes here and there, some that are broken up into 10, some into, over an hour. What I have definitely noticed, and this is part of why I'm like, okay, I'm just going to do things the way I want to do it, is that I've noticed that, when you do that people, once you can draw people in with that 1-2 minute video, if they like you, if they find, oh, there's value in this, or I'm very interested in what that person is saying, then they are willing to go and listen to you for ever and ever. I mean, the best example of that I can think of is Jordan Peterson, who had all of his lectures online, hours and hours and hours of video on YouTube, and people were watching them, but not that many. And then one controversial video that went viral made him explode. But because they were interested in what he had to say, all of a sudden, all of these hour-long lectures, people were willing to go and consume.
Yeah.
And like I said, I think it's just sort of part of, like, I just want to push back against that, that superficial, exaggerated presentation of self that people have done on Facebook in particular.
Well, yeah, you want to be real. You want to deliver things the way that you do. But you also, and I want to bring your awareness to this because I think it's something valuable that other people can do on purpose. In your comments on other people's posts, you give people the chance to expose themselves to you, to expose yourself to them, a little bit more of who you are, what your context is, the way that you listen, the quality of your communication and the quality of your engagement is so high in the comment on someone else's post that people know about you, that you're a giver, that you know what you're talking about, that you're interesting. And that is what sort of gets them in the mood to, when they see a video come up of yours, spend 8 minutes or
maybe.
spend 5 minutes or whatever it is. You're showing up in a lot more ways than just posting the video. So you can do that. Some people who are starting from scratch are going to put up an 8-minute video and nobody's going to know them and they're not going to watch it. Maybe someone will watch it by accident and maybe that person will be the right audience for it and maybe they'll share it. But the likelihood gets less and less and less as the time goes on. So looking at your full communication picture, where it is that you show up, how you show up for other people, and all the different touch points that you're hitting. Are you even aware of them? Like that they make an impact, especially with people like you who have a very high EQ, you know, that you are so naturally empathetic. You probably take it for granted a lot of the time that you are showing up for someone in a meaningful way to them, that they're taking value from that and getting a full picture of you, even without you meaning to. So when you do mean to, when you are purposeful about it, there's such a tremendous impact.
Oh, you're so sweet.
It's true.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess on what it is like I said, I sort of earlier, what I was saying kind of earlier, I operate on a lot of levels of faith, right? Like, right? That exactly that. First of all, I mean,
these things.
Well, one exactly. I think what you're getting at is that, you know, if you just show up, if you just kind of keep on, you know, plugging away, if you're there online and you're consuming the content, responding and engaging with it, if you're repeatedly creating content at very different, you know, durations and so forth, that one, over time, that's going to accumulate to a mass of communication, and then that will sort of build credibility and authority, et cetera. Two, it's just in my nature to, you know, if I like you, if I like what you're doing, if I get, and, you know, I just get a feel from people. It's like, okay, I like who they are. I like their soul. I like their, you know, they're clearly, they're not hateful. They're not, you know, there's something sincere and genuine and loving about that person. Then I'm your fan, and I will support you. I'm by nature a loyal person too. So so absolutely, it's sort of like, you know, once I get that feeling from somebody, then it's like, okay, you're my friend. I like you. I'm going to support you. And yes, that part of that is, I'm not just gonna, you know, click like and scroll through. It's like, oh, you're saying something. What are you saying? Okay, let me read it.
And there's that listening, right? That you are, in your comments, and you talked about this with active listening, the kind of questions that you ask to mirror and to let people know, it's important to me that I understood what you said, because what you have to say is important. So did I get this right? Is this what you mean? Can you expand on just that one point for me? It shows people that you're interested, and that connects so beautifully.
Well, you know, part of it is just, I just don't want to appear like an idiot. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to just.
Did I get this right? Right before you comment on something like, how dare you say this thing about this thing? And like, that's actually not what they said at all.
Right, exactly. I mean, the perfect example bringing up Kurt Mercadante was what brought me into him, actually, was he had this little article and post saying why you should piss more people off. And on the surface of it, that sounds kind of nasty. But what it was that I knew exactly what he was doing. I immediately kind of understood what he was doing. And one was that he was creating a provocative title just to draw you in. And then if you listened to what he was actually saying, he was not advocating going around and upsetting people. Quite the contrary. You know, and you know, I know that he doesn't purposefully try to do that. Does he maybe try to provoke you a little? Yes. But if you listen to what he's saying, it's what he was really talking about there was being true to yourself, and not being so self-conscious about the fact that you might offend people. It is okay to offend people. One of the greatest quotes that I love of Winston Churchill, right, is that, well, you've got enemies. Well, good. It means you stood up for something.
Yeah. And, there was a person of the year. I think it was a second term, but George W. Bush was Time Magazine's Person of the Year. And in this article, and this is not a political statement one way or the other, just something that I really liked from this article, that he said, and I thought this was very interesting insight to him and how he communicates and what his values are. He said that he had a lot of critics, which was true at the time, and it still is true, although, in comparison, maybe less so now.
Yeah.
That people were criticizing his deciding to start the war on terror as a thing. And he said, I know that there are going to be critics, but sometimes I can judge my success based on the kind of people who are my critics, right? Like if your critics are in the Taliban, you're probably doing the right thing. Not that which I just thought was very interesting. And, not to bring up the Taliban as a credible source or, say anything political, but that is what I thought of, and Kurt Margadana is actually a really interesting example of somebody who shows up across social media channels and in different kinds of snippets. So, right. He does upset some people who aren't his people. But he lets them know really fast who he is, right? And the people who are going to really resonate with him, and the people who aren't, self-identify very quickly. Mm-hmm. So people either know I'm going to be a fan of his or I'm not. But the people who are a fan of his, and I'm a fan of Kurt's, I've been following his podcast for a very long time, the Freedom Club podcast. And what I learned about Kurt first, I think I saw Kurt Mercadante first in the comments on a Fraser Cameron post. And Fraser was his coach. So he had commented something. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. That's kind of funny. I like his tone. Let me go check him out. And then I saw that he had this mug with a beard on it. And I watched a video of his there. And then it was these little snippets, like a comment that led me to then watch one of his videos that then led me to go and check out his podcast. So it's that I'll take this little bit of him, and then I want a little bit longer with the video, and then I want more with the podcast. And now I am a subscriber, so I want him all the time. And I follow him on Instagram, and I watch him on IGTV, when he has episodes there. So I've had a customer journey with Kurt that started with, I saw him comment on something of Fraser Cameron's. Mm-hmm. So it is every place that you show up. And it is understanding that people will be going through a journey with you and being purposeful about that if you want to. Maybe you want to just throw it up there and see what naturally happens as a social experiment or something. But there are ways of being purposeful about positioning in comments so that you do ask yourself, am I being authentic to myself in this moment? Am I showing up as myself? Verb your values is something that helps with that. Does my comment connect? Does it affirm? Does it empower? Those are the questions I ask myself before I hit post. That those are things that are intrinsic to me. And it's why I help coach people through that so that they do always show up as themselves, whether that's somebody that everybody will like or not. I'm not somebody that everybody likes. That's okay with me. I talk about things, people want me to be a certain way, right? They want me to be very positive and loving and supportive because I am that all the time. But that doesn't mean that I don't want to make money or help other people to do that. So some people get uncomfortable when I say things like, use your profile summary to tell people what it is that you do that's going to make them money, or what do you want people to give you money for? Mm-hmm. It's just such a simple way of saying, tell me what you do without, and not to make it impersonal, but I don't need somebody's whole entire life story instead of understanding what they do with that real estate, that there's a way of integrating those things and showing up as yourself while still giving people the information they need to make an educated decision about you.
Well, this is what was so interesting seeing you in action live, was that, yes, you do certainly sort of radiate a kindness and a gentleness and a lovingness. But what is also kind of interesting though is that it's just your ability, because you don't coddle people, right? And when in person, like you were very quick to be like, you know, somebody would you would ask a meaningful question, and then they would give you that sort of superficial answer. And as soon as they were going that sort of superficial route, you would dig deeper right away. You would ask a follow-up question. Okay, but what's underneath that? Okay, well, what's underneath that? And you would kind of cut them off. Like you were kind of sort of firm and purposeful, as you're saying. But in a just this amazing kind of nuanced way that is like I said, it's firm, it's maybe a little provocative, you're digging under the surface a bit, and in a way that might make them could make somebody uncomfortable, but nobody was uncomfortable. And
right. Well, I think that's part
trust.
of like, yeah, that's it, exactly. I make sure to build trust first. I acknowledge people for the different things that might make them uncomfortable. I'll take it on myself. So there was a woman, I think it was Maria, who was at the DYPB conference, and we were talking about how she was going to connect with a person in her life, and that was very important to her. And she was sitting at the back of the room, which already told me, you know, she could have chosen a different seat. She could have volleyed for a seat up front. She chose a seat sort of towards the back. I already know something about her because I'm listening to her choices. Right. And that was one of them. So I'm listening to what I can know about her so that I identify my communication partner right away. She also was very soft in her speech, and that tells me something. So I will temper my own speech and, you know, do that mirroring thing that you were talking about, because it makes people feel more comfortable. And this is still my voice, but I can settle and I can talk to people on this level and slow down a little bit and acknowledge, hey, it's really brave of you to speak when there's a whole group of people here, but I'm making eye contact. I'm connecting to this one person who's my communication partner, and other people get to watch me do that. So it's not that they're not part of it, right? But they are watching me build trust with somebody so that they know that they can trust me too. By the time I went and talked to somebody else, they knew that I cared and that was the reason for my questions. I really care for my client's success. I care that it's natural and authentic to them, that they're pursuing things based on their own strengths and values. And so it's using those things to give them the yes that they need that's different. You know, I think that people really know that I care. So when I do come at them with these pointed questions and I say, okay, I'm hearing you say this, but what's the reason for that? Or did this make you feel this, or did it make you feel this? You know, which of these two things is true? Is it neither of them? And getting to the details that help me to do my best work. And people trusting that I cared to begin with. Just like, you know, you were talking about earlier, when you get on a call, it doesn't feel like a sales call because you're not approaching it that way. Right. I'm not approaching my line of questioning as an interrogation. So people feel what it's not, and they do feel what it is.
Yeah, and that's aligned again with what I was saying with the show, right? That instead of having like a preset, you know, I'm going to ask this question, this question, this question, which is not organic. It's not. If it's a good conversation, it's a journey. So what you're doing there exactly is you're creating a journey with that one individual. You're engaging with them one-on-one, and everybody then, when you do that, and it's a journey, not just an interrogation, like you're saying, then everybody else is witnessing it, gets to come along for the ride there. And that's what I'm saying. Exactly what you're saying is in doing that, it's as if you had that conversation one-on-one with everybody. Everyone was brought along that ride to the point now where they're already, even though you haven't spoken to them yet, they're at that point of trust. So
they see how I work.
Brilliant. It's so brilliant.
Thank you.
I absolutely was like blown away. And again, it's that rapid, like the fact that you kind of immediately, it's sort of like, no, if they're not giving of, you know, what's under the surface, if they're not answering the question in a real, at the heart of what you're asking for, I'll
keep asking.
You'll keep asking.
Because I'm not going to stop until I'm actually able to help somebody, right? And if you've come to me for help, that means that you need some. Sorry, it was just a phone call I had to ignore. So I can confidently approach. I can confidently approach somebody, knowing that I have their objective in mind. And that's one of the reasons why the Say Things Better method of intentional communication has the 5 steps that it does.
Right.
You have to know what's really important to you in life. What keeps you accountable to being a good communicator. Why is it really important to you to do well at this? That's number 1. Number 2 is what do I want to get out of this, like right now? What do I need right now in this moment? Sorry, let me just fix this. One of the reasons that Say Things Better has 5 steps is because they are all necessary to help you get what you want while helping other people get what they want. It's the most sustainable way of building a relationship, and relationships are the most sustainable way of building and growing a business. So that's why I have all 5 steps in there. They all come from my work in theater, but they also involve my personal values for collaboration, because the work that we do in theater helps bring a certain sense of dramatic conflict to the stage. That's what's interesting to watch, right? One character going after one objective, while another character goes after another. That's what makes a scene interesting to watch as an audience. But we're not an audience. We're not in a play. This isn't a movie. We don't want dramatic conflict. We want that confluence and collaboration. We want, what I do to resonate with you and what you do. I want to bring my help, but you have to help me help you.
Right.
So by using my tools that are in my toolbox to help somebody to achieve their objective, that means unlocking by asking all those questions. I can then best help them to achieve their objective as I understand it. And then if I have helped them, I've achieved my objective. That's what's nice about doing coaching work, and consulting is if you have done a good job, you've achieved your objective.
What was the transition from your theater background and all of that training and deciding to do this coaching and developing this program that you did?
Oh, well, I've been talking to people on LinkedIn a lot about my business experience and management, and people would say things to me like, you're a really good communicator. Can you help me say this? You just say things better. So the name of the business came from a lot of people saying that exact same phrase, which was interesting to me. So I had that in the back of my mind for a long time. And I've done communication consulting and just helping people to articulate what their message is, but also just to navigate tricky communication situations. So if you have a conversation that you're going to go into that is going to be maybe difficult for you with your family or something, people have come to me for that kind of advice forever. It's just something that was a natural strength of mine. And I worked with Kristen Sherry, who's a career coach, towards the end of last year. And she helped me to identify that is actually a strength of mine that's not natural to everybody. And it really opened my eyes to the fact that not only could I help people, but I could help people in a way that was different than everybody else and their help. So it could actually be a business. And when I started working on what is it that I do that's so effective so that I know how I can actually quantify and repeat this and help people, I looked at my theater training because I know, it's a lot of it. I always have said my theater background has helped me to become a good communicator. But in storytelling and theater people telling people in business how to communicate well, that's not new. What's different is my approach to it. So I actually am using the exact tools that I learned in acting classes, but in combination with my values, with my need to have collaboration rather than competition, helping other people get what they want, what their objective is in a scene. So I started noticing that there were these steps to it. It's what right? What's the character's objective from beginning to end of the play? What do they need to get out of it? What's their purpose? This is for you. What's the my life? What are the stakes for me to be accountable to be a good communicator in this moment? And then the next step is, what is my objective? In a scene, it's what is an actor understanding about their character? What does their character need from the other character in the scene? We have tools to go and achieve that objective. We have tools to pursue that. So taking those tools and directly translating them to approaching your communication partner and trying to get your objective from them. And then from that point, it's what do they need to get out of it, right? Because there is another actor, there is another character on stage, and they have to like not walk off stage. I had a director who was standing in for an actor one day in rehearsal, Brandon Walker at the Seeing Place Theater Company. And when I wasn't purposefully pursuing my objective, he would walk off the stage in rehearsal. You know, he wouldn't do it in performance, I don't think, but he did do it in rehearsal, that he would just like walk off the stage, because if I'm not doing something to keep you there, I'm not doing my job as an actor.
Interesting.
So in, you know, a communication event, we have to do what we need to do to keep that other person from walking off the stage. What helps them to achieve their objective is so important, just in continuing that conversation. The trust is there, you know, if you've built it, that's great, but you still have to keep it. You have to keep that trust. You have to not break it. And you have to show up for that person in helping them get what they want. Otherwise, they'll think you don't care and they'll hang up the phone, or they'll walk out of the room, or they'll click off your site, or whatever it is. So I'm seeing these parallels, you know, I'm seeing like, what happens next? Like, what else can I do? What else am I actually thinking about? There's the toolbox, the things that you have in your toolbox that help you help that person better than anybody else is going to. So not only are you someone that they say, yes, I'll do this for you too, but you're somebody that has given them such unique value that they say, oh my goodness, thank you. Yes, I would love this opportunity. That's how you want to communicate and have a sustainable and, you know, one of those contracts that doesn't just like trail off and become nothing, or there's like repeated follow-up. You want the person who's really excited to work with you. You want the customer who's really excited about their purchase, so that they go and evangelize your store to everybody that they know. I had the best experience at the Julian Smit store, you know, and let me tell you all about it. And then that fifth step, that communicative action, making sure that your values appear actively in your communication. That's really all that it is. But it's thinking about that communication partner and what do they need to feel in order to be open to your help to begin with, because you won't get you haven't helped anybody else achieve theirs. So it's just another tool that we can use. It was really just such an obvious parallel for me, you know, from one step to the other, of the tools that I have from acting, but the reason I want to use them, is bringing people together in unity around an idea, in collaboration that feels good.
Man, such a unique thing that you've done, and it's so cool to, you know, to translate that, you know, that sort of world of theater, the play of it, into the real practical world, and business world. I find it just so amazing and brilliant. So what's next on the horizon for you?
Thank you. Oh, I've got a lot of events coming up. I've got an event at WeWork in Thanksgiving Tower in downtown Dallas on September 5th. I'm going to be doing Verb Your Values Express, so like a 5-minute version per person of that workshop that I did, that you came to. So, you know, people will come to me with either like the messaging in their LinkedIn profile, and I'll look at it really fast and be like, is this actually what you do, or do you do this? Is this the benefit of what you do, or is it that? You know, like boom, 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 you know, going really quickly through things. Or they'll bring a communication issue that they need some help navigating. So that will be on September 5th from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Central Time at WeWork Thanksgiving Tower, and I'll be in the common area there. It's free for WeWork members, $10 for non-WeWork members, but then they also get a free full day of co-working, and included in that. And there's a link to that in my bio on Instagram, and on where I am at Lila Lasagna.
Those links are all going to appear below. You're going to send me all of those links, and
I'll send you all the links, and we'll put them right here.
We'll put them right
there. On Instagram at Lila Lasagna, on LinkedIn Lila Smith. You can also look up hashtag Say Things Better, and I'll pop up. And the link is in my LinkedIn profile too for whatever's the next event. Following that, there's going to be RebelCon, where I'm speaking at the end of the month. It's an invite-only glamping conference that Nancy Koblenz and Rebel Role Model are hosting. There are going to be 36 speakers from all around the world, and I'm one of them. And I will actually be glamping, which is, I mean, I hope it's really super glamorous, because I'm not a camper. But I will also rough it. I'll suck it up and, you know, get in the dirt with the bugs and the rocks, or whatever people do when they camp. Right. But I'm really excited to just be around this conference of different brilliant minds who do something a little bit differently. There are going to be a ton of like VR headsets and AR like models of things. And I'm just so excited to go and be with a bunch of other smart, geeky people and speak there. And then in October, I'm going to be in Philadelphia and New York and Luxembourg and London and Dublin, and then who knows?
Holy smokes.
So there's a lot of like stuff going on. Just like look at my LinkedIn profile. I usually keep it updated with whatever's coming up next.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So I'll go through there, or send me all of the links. We'll put them all into the profile.
I'll send you a link.
Look at you, just on fire, and rightfully so. I mean, the way that, I mean, it's just amazing again how you are able to connect with people, command sort of authority, build trust, like that. It's just mind-boggling. And I think it's probably, is it fair of me to say that you're just getting started?
I am.
Yeah. Like, I mean,
Thank
right?
You.
Yeah. I think
I have a lot of stuff still to do.
Yeah. No, and I mean, when did you start Say Things Better, and when did all of this start?
Well, I formally launched it during the 10 Tips 10 Days campaign, which was just a couple months ago. I've been doing the work for a while, but I formally launched it just via hashtag. And I have a website, but I haven't even formally launched that yet. So maybe we can do that when we
Absolutely. It would be my pleasure.
When we talk about this, like it is saythingsbetter.com. So that'll be also my impetus to go and like update my copy there today.
Right. Brilliant. Okay. Well, man, like, yeah, so you really are, like, I mean, it's amazing to see how, I'm so happy for you to see they can come so far, so fast. And I mean, like, the energy that you have to give with it is just unbelievable. You are just, your career is just going to be crazy. I can't even.
So I want to help everybody. You know, I want whatever it is that happens, I want it to be something that helps people worldwide to become more intentional communicators. If we each have a superpower and we each have something that we think is going to save the world, I think that's mine.
It is one of your superpowers, without a question. You are a powerhouse when it comes to communicating. And you know, I had one of my guests that I had a while back, just absolutely brilliant guy, Jim Still. You know, he's very successful businessman over the years. You know, he was on the board of Research in Motion, BlackBerry, years ago. He could easily retire now if he wanted to, but he just loves to work. But while he was a guest on the show, he had a great line, which was, you know, people have a tendency to overestimate what they can do in a day and underestimate what they can do in a decade. Well, I mean, what you have accomplished in just 1 year, to me, is just amazing. So I just can't imagine where you're going to be in a decade from now. You're going to be on the
Let's
cover.
See.
Oh, well, you know, you're going to be in Forbes and every Wired magazine and probably cover of New York Times.
From your lips, you know?
Yeah.
Great. I'm ready.
Done.
Let me just like fix my hair. Okay.
Times Person of the Year. There it is.
I'm ready.
She's ready. Oh man, this has been so much fun. And for sure, you're coming back on. It's just a done deal.
Okay.
When you launch that site,
here.
You send me a note. Say my site is ready to go. I'm doing the podcast tour. Get me back on. Pre-agreed.
Sounds great. It might be sooner than we think.
Oh, okay. Well, you know what? Yeah. Look, I mean, gosh, I don't know. This is probably one of the longest conversations that I think I've ever had on the show. I'm gonna
maybe in life.
No. Well, I'm gonna have to break this up into I don't know how many pieces.
Yeah. Just find anything that you think is going to be valuable to your listeners, and to people who. I want people to know too, like about you and what you do. And I know that your listeners know a lot about that, but I think that at least I think that this conversation has brought out some different elements of your approach, which, is always, when I talk to people, I always want to know the kind of things that I asked you today.
Yeah, well, you're one of the, that's so sweet. Like, again, like nobody's, like, again, I just operate on an article of faith that over time that will get communicated. But you have actually taken the time to do exactly what you say you do, which is engage, listen, try to extract from me the value, and
I like to extract as a verb. I had not considered that, but I really like it. To extract.
Oh, see, it's the two.
I'm going to go have an extracting day.
Extract it. The two-way street. This is what it is. It's the two-way street. You know, this is what happens when two communicators get together. We could go on and on and on and on.
Forever.
I've got big